Hi everybody, thanks for joining us again on another of our behind the scenes videos for Crayta. Here at Unit 2 Games, we're really passionate about making games as accessible as possible. We've worked really hard to build a game that all experience and ability levels can enjoy playing and creating in, but we also want to do everything we can to open up the world of gaming even further to those who aren't always able to join in at all. So to celebrate this year's Global Accessibility Awareness Day, we're delighted to welcome Kirsty McNaught, our accessibility consultant, to explain why this area is so important for so many people and how she's helped us to build Crayta with accessibility needs in mind. Hi there, Kirsty, thanks for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your experience and the kind of projects that you get involved with?
Hi, thanks for having me. So I work as an independent technology consultant. I specialise in game accessibility, and in particular most of what I've done has focused on motor accessibility. So this is about how you might adapt gameplay to either a different input modality, so maybe someone's using eye control instead of a controller, or maybe just a limited subset of controls. So maybe somebody needs fewer switches or different adaptive switches to play the game. And thinking about how you might adapt a game and the mechanics and the control systems so that you can reach as many people as possible. I first got into game accessibility by doing some work with Special Effect, the leading disabled gaming charity in the UK, and I worked with them a few years ago to build an eye-controlled interface for Minecraft, so both adapting the game and adapting the control inputs so that you can play Minecraft using only your eyes. And since then I've worked further both in terms of eye gaze as an input, eye control for games, and also adapting games and making them as accessible as possible.
So what's your involvement been so far with Crayta?
So I've been working with Unit 2 in an advisory role from quite early on in the project, advising on both the accessibility of Crayta the game engine and any games that will be available on Crayta at launch. So my input mainly goes in via the UX side of the team, because accessibility is quite a big part of user experience design.
Great, and how did you get involved with Crayta Sprint League? So that's one of our indie funder games that's actually included some accessibility functions.
Yeah, so when the Indie Fund call was put out, Johnny put forward this proposal for Crayta Sprint League, and he specifically talked about accessibility and wanting a game that could naturally target different levels of input restriction. So maybe some people would be playing with a full controller, but some people might only be able to do one joystick and a switch as well, or maybe someone wants to play with a single switch. And I was really excited to see what Johnny was envisioning doing within Crayta. I was already aware of Johnny's previous project, the Bubbles the Cat platformer, which is a fantastic showcase of how you can make a really engaging and rich game with interesting gameplay, but with really limited input restrictions, so it's a single switch platformer. Johnny was really keen from the outset to aim for a mode of the game that you'd be able to play with a single switch, much like his platform game he'd previously designed. So while Johnny was working in Crayta and building these lovely levels and doing all the level design, I looked at implementing a steering control algorithm, so allowing the player to be automatically steered towards or along a path defined in the environment so that they could play the game using only a single switch for jumping. And one of the nice things about Johnny's game is that, and the level design around that, is that there's a lot of different options. Maybe you're going through a particular path in the level and you miss the jump, and now you've got to find a different route. So there was a lot of work doing algorithms in Lua to help steer the player and recover from situations where you miss a jump and now you've got to go a different way.
So you've worked on quite a range of different games projects over the years and different game development environments. How have you found working in Crayta from an accessibility standpoint, and how easy did you find it to add in this case, some of the Lua scripting you needed to do to get some of those adaptations to work?
So one of the nice things is that Crayta takes care of a lot of low-level details for you, so you can quite quickly jump into high-level gameplay ideas and quickly iterate and explore different accessibility options. You don't need to spend time thinking about how you're going to remap controls or support a controller and a keyboard and mouse, because Crayta takes care of all of that for you. So you can focus your attention on how you're going to adapt the gameplay, and using the Lua API, there's a lot of flexibility there in what you can achieve. And also in terms of game creation, the collaborative aspect of Crayta means that you can easily work within a team of different people taking on different parts of the game design. So you might have one person on the team using a PC, working on a PC with a keyboard and mouse, jumping into advanced edit mode, implementing lots of advanced stuff in lower, while others might stay in basic mode with a controller, crafting the levels of your game or the environment. So this should make the game creation process much more approachable to everyone and hopefully more accessible. So if you're playing with a limited set of controls, you should still be able to participate in the process of building a game. And that's also something that we're hoping to get feedback from the community on, so that over time we can do as much as we can to make game creation accessible to as many people as possible.
And obviously we're hoping that many more people are going to be making games than ever before once Crayta's out. What are your top tips for people that are considering accessibility issues in their game designs?
So firstly, there are a huge range of game accessibility considerations, so I can't mention all of them. But the way I like to think about it is to, as a game designer, put myself in the position of the player and think about two things. One, how does the player interact with your game? So is it possible that you might be able to simplify the controls or make them a bit more forgiving if you're building an environment where somebody has to move some objects in order to solve a puzzle, or they need to pull a lever or press a button? Can you make sure that that doesn't require really accurate control with tiny trigger boxes, make things a little bit more forgiving? But also, how does the game communicate to the player? So if you're presenting information about the state of the world, maybe you've got some sound effects that are signifying that there's a dangerous situation in the game. Can you make sure that you're also backing that up with visual effects, so that a deaf player is not going to be missing out on some vital part of the game, and vice versa? If you've got some information being portrayed visually, how are you going to back that up with other sensory modalities for somebody playing your game with visual impairment?
Great, that's brilliant tips. Thanks, Kirsty. Huge thank you to you again for joining us today. If any of you watching are interested in finding out more about accessibility issues in games, or you know of someone that would benefit from some help and support, then please check out specialeffect.org.uk. And in the meantime, check out the Creator Showcase video for Crayta Sprint League as well to see some of these accessibility functions in action. And keep an eye out on our channel for release date announcements soon so that you can start making your own games.